Welcome, everyone, to a very special episode of The Character Sheet. I am Christian Hoffer, and today I am joined by a very special guest. If you were on YouTube recently, you may have seen a new actual play series basically blow up the internet, and I am going to talk with the DM of Sword AF, Damien Haas.
Hello, Christian. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for coming on.
Yeah.
So, let's chat about some Dungeons and Dragons and actual plays and all that stuff. So, I think for those of you who might not know, who Damien Haas is, obviously, Smosh games, super big success. If you're on YouTube, probably this is superfluous. But really quickly, why don't we run down for those folks who might be coming on from comic book? What exactly is it that you do, sir?
That's a great question. I am a voice actor, I'm a Twitch streamer, and I have been on Smosh games for about 5 or 6 years now. So what Smosh has always been really good at is sort of going with the flow, changing with the times. It started out as a sketch comedy channel. They started making some gaming content when there was like a merger back in the day. That was before my time. They make personality-based content, and now we're finally like hitting our stride with getting all three going. It's 3 channels: Smosh, Smosh Games, and Smosh Pit. That's personality based. So I am an on-camera talent, and also I produce for Smosh Games. And Sword AF is a play on our board game series, Board AF. And Sword AF is my baby. And it's really exciting to see people like it and surprising and nice.
So I know from watching, the first episode that this is something that fans of Smosh games have wanted for a while now. And you actually, this isn't your first time technically DMing on screen, because if I recall correctly, you did these the dragon, the starter kit for Wizards of the Coast, Dragons of Stormwreck Isle. You ran that. So how exactly did you get into Dungeons and Dragons? Was the last video you did your first experience with it, or have you been playing for a while?
It's been a thing that's been a part of my life for a while, just in a very like tangential kind of way. So I do want to clarify, when we did the Dragons of Stormwreck Isle, I was not the DM, I was one of the players. So not only is this my first time DMing, you seeing me on screen for that episode, other than our one like session 0, was my first time DMing ever.
Oh, wow.
Which was extremely nerve-wracking. But yeah, I thought that you might ask that question, and I was thinking about it in the shower this morning. I was like, when did I first play D&D? And I just completely uncovered this whole pile of memories that when I was a young teenager, a friend of mine got a D&D book, and he really wanted to play, but we didn't have a big group or anything. So like it would be me and him, or maybe me and him and his sister. And like he would run mini campaigns for like just me or just one other person. So I would go over to his place, and like instead of us playing games like we normally would, video games, it's like PS2 era, we would just I'd be like, hey, like, can we make another character? Like, what can we, go on a campaign? And obviously being like a young teenager, I just wanted to be like, yeah, he's the strongest dragon born, and he rides a T-Rex, and he gets all the treasure, and but it wasn't until, a few years back that, through just different friendships in my life, that I started experiencing D&D again. And it's always just been kind of there hovering in the background. So I've always had an appreciation of it and an enjoyment of it. But this is my first time letting myself go like full bore hyperfixation, read everything I can kind of mode.
So when you were prepping for Sword AF, and I'm sure that you were, did you watch some of the big actual plays that are out there, like Critical Role or Dimension 20 or anything like that? Did you take any like inspiration or tips and tricks from Matt Mercer, Brennan, Mulligan, Aabria, Iyengar, any of the big DMs out there when you were preparing for this campaign?
Sure. So first of all, shout out Aabria. Aabria is the nicest human in the world. Everything you see online of the kindness, that's who she is. So I have seen a fair amount of D&D content just on my own. I watched a lot of Fantasy High, Dimension 20, and the Unsleeping City during like peak quarantine times. And I also listened to a fair amount of Dungeons and Daddies at that time as well. But specifically for prepping this game, I sort of cut myself off of that content because I didn't want to be too directly influenced. I think Smosh is a very unique combination of people and a unique combination of talents, and I wanted to figure out a way to utilize them organically without having to pull too much from anything. That being said, you can't escape being influenced. So I think probably the person I look to most as a DM for letting people play and just wanting to play with them would be like a Brennan Lee Mulligan. I've met him a couple times, also very nice person. But he's somebody that plays to the top of his intelligence, meaning he's not there to show off how much he knows, but whatever you're going to throw at him, he's prepared in a way that is not only manageable, but like impressive. And I think that's something to aspire to. I also know Critical Role is out there and is, very well respected by its fans. I frankly have not seen any Critical Role content yet. I will. It's not a matter of, not respecting their work. It's just there is so much to dive into.
There is.
I also have a few friends who work over there, and I'm an overthinker, but I've never wanted it to seem like, hey, I know your work. Hey, you work at Critical Role. Like, cool. I love Critical Role. You know what I mean? Like, I like to be people's contemporaries, not their fans, if that makes sense.
No, that totally makes sense. Makes sense. So when you were, when you guys sat down and said, okay, we're going to do an actual play, tabletop RPG, was D&D always the choice, or were you ever like considering other game systems?
Yeah, we had talked about it. I pushed very hard for D&D due to brand recognition. I think with the level that we're playing at, I'm focusing mostly on character interactions, their ability to improvise. We have a few players who either have very little experience or haven't played at all, and I really wanted them to be able to have fun and not feel like confined by all the numbers. So I was like, you tell me what you want to do, we'll make it happen. So I want the audience to experience that too. And so I think with D&D, it's been a part of the cultural zeitgeist for so long. People are comfortable coming in and being like, I don't know D&D, but I know there's like dragons and wizards. And I'm like, great, that's all you need to know. If I say something like, we're doing Pathfinder, we're doing Gloomhaven, people don't see that and get that same click. You have to sort of convince them like, no, it's similar. And that's already one step too many rather, for a channel like ours who has not done that yet.
Yeah, no, that totally makes sense. So did you have any kind of like getting into like the nitty gritty of like the actual play stuff? Like when you sat down to like produce, Sword AF, was there any, goals that you had, anything that you wanted to do that was like unique to it? Because, we talked a little bit about this off camera, but there's a couple of like little like wrinkles that you did with your production that I was really impressed by. And I think, your fans and, the internet in general have really responded to some of that. It gave it a really unique feel to it. So,
yeah, I appreciate that. Thank you. So my goal sort of changed midway through production. As of filming now, we have 4 episodes in the can, ready to go. And so I'm excited seeing the audience reaction now. For anybody who's watching this, we're filming this 2 days after the premiere of Sword AF. In fact, to the hour. So my goal originally was the series I had produced right before this was Board AF Legacy, where we played Betrayal at House on the Hill, Legacy, and created new characters every time, complete with like period accurate kind of pieces, color coded outfits. And that was the most I'd ever produced on Smosh games. And so that was my baby. And I wanted the cast to get used to that. I wanted the audience to get used to that. And there was a very positive response with like a diehard fan base. And I was really pleased with that. So going into D&D, there was a lot of imposter syndrome, right? Because I'm being in this space, I know a lot of people where D&D is their whole thing and they're very good at it and for good reason. And so when I was first approached, like, hey, we want to finally do a D&D series, and they mentioned, we want you to DM, I initially suggested other people. I was like, have you thought about this person? We could reach out to this person. We have this person. And they said, no, we would like it to be you. And I was like, okay. So my goal originally was not to screw up and to get that core audience something that they would enjoy. In between the point A of, ideation and point B of actually releasing the thing, Anthony, who is one of the original creators of Smosh, returned. And with that, a lot of new eyes on our content, on our social media. Everybody was really positive about that for the most part. Internally, we're all very positive. It's just the vibes have never been better. But there was all of a sudden this pressure of like, oh God, it's not enough to just be kind of enough. Like, this is the first big release Smosh Games is going to have while people are watching us. We're in this really cool position. I better not screw it up. So, you know, I think after the panic subsided, my only goal was to not make a show for another channel, if that makes sense. Like, we are a cast of sketch comedians and improvisers at the end of the day, and a lot of us happen to like board games and video games. So what does that look like on our channel? You know, I didn't want to have a board in front of me and have someone who's at their core like a comedic improviser say like, I hit him with my sword, and then me go, sorry, you're 35 feet away, your sword, you can only reach 30 feet. Good luck, champ. I'm like, no, wouldn't it be cool if they hit, you know? So that is mainly my goal. I'm curious, you brought up, you know, some things that I did, and I'm very used to flying by the seat of my pants. This is the most I've ever prepped for anything. So not looking for compliments, but what are you specifically referring to maybe that surprised you?
One of the things I really liked about your production, and I watch a lot of actual play, and usually it's a set camera, and that's what makes sense. It's even the multi-camera setups, it'll be a wide shot of the table, like Dimension 20 is a great example. You have a wide shot, and then you have close-ups of people's hands, of like people's faces to get reactions and things like that. Or the only time you see like sweeping combat or a sweeping camera angle is when it's actually like the battle map and stuff like that. But one of the things that I really liked about your production is you had the set angle where you had the wide shot where you're seeing everybody. But when people were, role playing, you had, occasionally you would have a camera shot where it's close up and it's handheld too, because you could actually see the shake. And so it very much felt like it was a lot more intimate almost. It almost felt a little bit more like improv-y, which, actual play is like, it always makes me laugh, like, Critical Role is scripted or Dimension 20 is scripted or something like that. But I think that, having that handheld camera, it kind of, I don't want to say it allowed you to buy into the illusion that it wasn't as produced as, because your episodes were only an hour long. I'm assuming that you didn't just sit there for like you didn't manage to get an entire session in 1 hour. If you did, props to you.
Hold off on that compliment, please, because that's not what happened. We film like the first batch that we did, we would do like an hour and a half, hour 45 per episode. I ended up pushing and being like, can we have more time? And we got 2, which is nice. So thank you for that. I do want to shout out not only the crew, but my fellow producers, because this is, while this is specifically my baby, it is a big collaborative effort. So specifically camera angles and things like that, that was not my doing. That is usually the setup we have for the rest of our gaming content, at least around that board game table. That is we keep it all on the Smosh Games channel. So I think one major benefit of that is familiarity with the audience that we already have. They look at it and go like, okay, I can buy into D&D because this is just like the other board games you play, right? Yes, correct. So looking at it now, I can look at it and be like, yeah, that's the plan, that was the point. But like, no, I think that's a happy accident. But I will say, going back to one of the things you said, whenever somebody thinks that something you improvised is scripted, I never take that as an insult. That's always the nicest compliment, because you're like, you think I, worried away the hours writing this, and nope, we just pulled it out of our butts. So, yeah.
No, I'm sure you will get a lot more compliments like that in the coming hours.
Well, thank you.
Let's talk a little bit about the cast. So you've known everybody on the cast for a while. These are all Smosh Games veterans and stuff like that. When you guys were assembling the team, so to speak, were those the people that you had in mind? Like, okay, I'm going to be the DM. Did you get a say in who was going to be the players, or were you comfortable with it? Talk a little bit about how the cast came together.
Sure. Well, so this is the cast that we had for Board AF Legacy, who had proven that they could balance, character and gameplay. And there was some conversation before we started this about like changing up the cast. You know, we don't want the audience to get too familiar with a specific group because we have so many talented people to pull from, all of whom could be wonderful players in this game. And at the same time, you know, you want to think about everybody's strengths and you want to get different perspectives and backgrounds and things like that. But then when we looked at this cast, you know, at the end of the day, we decided on this group because we already had such a strong rapport from that previous gameplay, and we wanted to sort of put our best foot forward for this first D&D situation. And, you know, the first episode has popped off. I could not be more pleased. But there is always the chance that, like, you know, from here on out, it sees sort of dwindling returns. Who knows? But if we do get future seasons and more opportunities to play for everybody, yeah, I don't think we'll have to... We're spoiled for choice in terms of fantastic cast members. So this isn't necessarily going to be the thing. You know, on my personal stream last night, I try to shy away from like Smosh questions because it's my own thing. And I don't want to be like, I can't speak for the company, you know, yada, yada, yada. But someone asked like, what's the future look like? Is it going to continue on with these characters or have new characters? And I can't share anything like that yet. I don't even know specifically, but I'm open to all of it. You know, why limit ourselves this early on, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that kind of brings up something that I was going to ask, where you know, was there a set like episode goal in mind? You know, like Critical Role, like, you know, it's like 1,000 episodes per campaign.
The one piece of D&D.
You know, Critter fans, I know how many episodes are in each one. But you know, so like, did you guys have like, you know, we're going to like run a campaign and like X amount of episodes, and how did that impact your like, you know, DM style? Because, you know, there's some people run short campaigns, some people run, you know, the epic multi-year campaigns, you know. So how did that all play out?
Yeah, that's a great question. So originally we did have a set amount of episodes, and it was fewer than I would have liked, but I didn't, you know, fault anybody for that because it is a new sort of territory for us. You don't want to commit to like months and months of content when something doesn't take off, right? So in my mind, I had sort of piecemeal adventures built into this campaign that would build into something overarching, but like, you know, you don't necessarily earn a giant reveal of something or a huge storyline when there's only 4 or 5 episodes and they're an hour long each. Like, you know, this person is the big bad person. It's like, oh, who cares? You know, it's too short. So after we filmed the first couple episodes, we had a great time. But there were moments where like Spencer Agnew, who is I believe what is his official title? He's fantastic to work with. He is, I believe, like head of content for Smosh Games, or no, director of the channel of Smosh Games. Sorry, Spencer. Big important guy. He my boss, but my friend. He is also directing it, and so he would have moments of like, hey, we're running a little short on time. You know, are you getting to a good point to wrap things up? And I'm looking at this page of like all these events that I theoretically like branching paths, all these things that could happen. And I was like, we could. And he's like, are they about to fight something? I'm like, yeah, they're about to fight a bunch of stuff. He's like, what if they fought less than that? I'm like, okay, there's 2 guys pop out, just 2 guys, not big, not scary, just 2 little guys. They're going to fight you. So after that batch, you know, we sat down and talked like, hey, you know, just the characters hanging out in the back of their wagon, chatting and talking about character-based stuff. That was the most fun we had. Like the combat is cool, but that takes a minute. So I want to spend more time on that. But not only that, I want to be comfortable in doing that. I don't want to feel like, we have other things to film today. We have to get this done. So I pushed for more episodes and more time per episode. And so far, everybody's been amenable to those requests. So that was a very long-winded way to answer. I don't know how many episodes we're going to have. I know what number they've given me now. I know what I'd like to get done in the season. You know, I think if I end up getting to like a certain amount of episodes and I'm like, I need one more to make this really satisfying as a payoff, I don't think anyone would say no, but I also don't want to play with fire and be like, you can't tell me no, you know? I'm your DM. Look at my mug. You think they give this to just anyone?
Did you get that from Wizards? Oh yeah, because you did the Dragon in Stormbreak Isle. Is that how?
So no, actually, I got this a while ago. Funny story. I was hit up by a friend of mine who's like, I'm not gonna name drop, but he was like very well known. And he was like, this was maybe like 6 or 7 years ago. And in fact, I think it was concurrent with the launch of 5e.
Okay.
And he was like, hey, I'm going to be doing this stream of D&D. It's going to have like celebrity guests. And I was like, what? Why are you talking to me then? Because I was on the Disney Channel like 5 years prior. So he was like, it's going to have celebrity guests. Like, you know, you should come join. And I'm like, that sounds great. I would love to. It's like, cool. You know, it's not a paid thing, but like, we'll give you like a D&D gift basket, whatever. And I was like, cool. That's the mug. So I ended up working with some really cool people. Zelda Williams, Bonnie Gordon, who is a D&D person and also like an incredible singer, part of the Library Bards. John Famiglietti of the band Health. It was like this crazy crew and it was fun, but like I didn't really know what I was doing. But this was right as I had joined Smosh. So my mom sees that and she thinks, oh, this is Smosh. This is his new job. I knew he'd be doing some gaming. So she sends me a text one day and says, look who I ran into. And it's her with her arm like smiling, like she's just smiling and her arm is around John Famiglietti of the band Health. And he's looking polite and like smiling at the camera, but very confused. I was like, how did you recognize John from the band Health, Mom? She's like, isn't that Smosh? Isn't he from Smosh? And I'm like, no. And she's like, oh. And I was like, what did you say? And she's like, I went up to him and I'm like, I'm Damien's mom. And he was like, oh. And then we got a photo. And I was like, that's awesome. I owe him a weird text. And that's how I got the mug. But God, I still have that photo somewhere. And the poor guy, he's so nice, at least from the few times I've met him. But
wow.
Funny mom. Yeah.
Also,
shout out to this artwork by Asminanon. I want to say before I forget, I pulled right before stream. It's the height of our characters. Anyway.
That's a quick question about this one comes from producer Pete,
Sure.
who wants to know, speaking of the characters, can you confirm that Fernie's war mode is just Shane's Murloc impression?
Just loses it, and it's more like like.
Oh my God, that's so good. And you know what? I think Shane played not D&D, World of Warcraft back in the day. It's got to be wow. I'm gonna text him that and see what he says. Yeah, that's wild.
We should probably, I could talk to you all day, but we should probably wrap this thing up. So
Sure.
One last question. And this one, my best friend is a Smosh Games
cool.
watcher. And when I was like, oh yeah, I'm talking to Damien, he mentioned that you're a big fan of anime. So this one. When you were describing like the combat and some of the interactions, were there any anime influences? I feel like I should ask you about the anime influences of Sword AF and if there were any.
Sword AF is very much like within the world of traditional fantasy, similar to Forgotten Realms stuff. So I wouldn't say that I pulled in too many anime references specifically. That being said, who I am at my core, I don't think you can separate the two. I know it's not anime, it's Final Fantasy, but like I've got my Cloud Buster Sword necklace here. Like it's just part of who I am. I've got my Dark Souls rings, again, not anime, but like our influences are what they are. So I'm sure you've got some anime stuff in there. God, I've even got the manga for Twilight Princess next to me. I don't think
heck yeah.
me better as a person.
Yeah.
I'm a weed.
So one final question, just to give us like a tease about, maybe what fans can expect about Sword AF and about the world that it's set in and what's to come. Is there any like cool teases that you can tell us about the world or about the lore? Any cool hooks or Easter eggs for fans, to kind of look forward to in the future episodes?
Yes. Yes, I'm trying really hard to think about stuff like that. Okay, so one of the first things that I really enjoyed about the first episode that I was very proud of was a bit of a misdirect. If you haven't seen it yet, you don't have to watch, but thank you for watching this. We have a centaur that is in charge of the wagon that carries them from place to place. His name is Gunthar. I'd originally named him something different in my notes. I forgot it. Gunthar is what came out. His name is Gunthar now. So he is going to pull the wagon, or like, you know, have the wagon take them to different places. So there was the misdirect of someone saying like, all right, well, let's go. And he's just like, well, hold on, I'm not ready yet. He whistles, and then a horse comes around the corner. He hooks it up to the wagon, and then he just sits like side saddle in the front to like drive it. And everyone's like, oh, and he's like, what do you mean, oh? And they're like, we thought you were gonna bring us. He's like, well, why would I do that? Like that kind of vibe. So I would just say expect more misdirects like that, sort of a play on what you might expect from a traditional, like a play on a play. Like if you see a centaur, you might be like, oh, he's the one pulling the wagon. That's a funny twist, but he's not. It's a twist on a twist. I'm gonna keep you guessing.
Well,
I also want to one last thing, because I got away from this. I want to shout out the cast, because they are all so incredibly talented. Watching them just play and have fun and truly embrace this has been a absolute delight. They're all extremely talented with different backgrounds. They're all like, some of them teach at improv places. Some of them have, you know, they're from Star Kid. Shane has been on the Goldbergs for the longest time. Like, we truly have a wonderful cast of just actors. So I want to thank the audience as well for giving us a chance. Even in the comment section, it doesn't feel like there's any gatekeeping going on from people who are clearly new to the game. And that means a lot. So thanks for giving us a chance. I hope we continue to entertain you. And thank you, Christian. I appreciate you.
Oh, no. Thank you for taking the time to talk with us tonight.
Yeah, of course.
And, you know, so, you know, Sword AF is on Smosh Games. New episodes, will they be coming out weekly?
It's going to be bi-weekly, every other week on Wednesdays.
Okay. So, you know, episode 1, if you're watching this when we post it, is brand new. You know, just went up this week. And episode 2 will be coming out in a couple weeks. So get caught up before episode 2 comes out.
Appreciate you.
Well, thank you very much. And, you know, have a great rest of your day.
You as well, my friend. Thank you very much.
Goodbye, Damien!